Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to give an update on the first 2 months of the year and how things have performed so far. Firstly, as always, we'll look at the value of my portfolio and how that has changed over the first 2 months of the year. Certainly over the past week, there's been a lot of changes. Next, then we'll look at the different sectors within my portfolio and how these have changed again over the past 2 months. Then we will move on and look at any new purchases that I've made over the past couple of weeks and months, and there have been a lot, so hopefully that will be of interest. Then we will move on and look at star performers. So usually this is when I look at the best performing stock in my portfolio from the month, which was great up until the coronavirus outbreak, and everything has gone into reverse, unfortunately. Then we'll move on to dividend payments, which is what it's all about, and there's been quite a number so far, so hopefully that will be of interest. Just before we get started into the main video then, I just want to also mention that I started a dedicated Instagram page for my investment journey. So here it is, just to scroll down to give you an idea of the different content that's included. So it's mostly updates every day in terms of how my portfolio is performing. There's some educational aspects to it as well, but hopefully you would find that of interest as well. So just to give you an example, here is a post that I put up regarding my monthly dividend payments. As you can see here, comparing them to 2019. If we go back out then, here is another example, which gives a breakdown of my portfolio by each individual holding and the percentage that they account for. Another good example then is this graph, which shows the growth in my portfolio over the last year or so. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're on Instagram, going on and hitting the follow button as well, and then providing your feedback, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Okay, back to the main video then. So we'll start off with the value of my portfolio and how that has changed over the last year. Okay, so here's the graph. As you can see, growing, and then we get to February, and of course a decrease with the coronavirus outbreak. So going back to January 2019, it was £781, the total value. In February 2020, it finished at £27,427. In saying that though, it's only a net increase of £19 versus the end of December 19, when is the last time that I did an update video. That's despite new purchases of £3,966, and that of course is because there were losses of £3,947, predominantly in the past week due to the coronavirus having such a negative impact on the value of the markets around the world. If we move on then to the portfolio analysis and look at the split between the different sectors within my portfolio. So first of all then we have financials, which is worth exactly 1/5 or 20% of my portfolio, which is actually down 3% compared to the last time I did one of these videos. Next then, if we move on to consumer staples, it is also worth 20%, which is down just 1% compared to the previous video that I released. If we move on then to energy, so this has actually increased 1% to 19% overall. And that's because I've invested a lot in the likes of Royal Dutch Shell recently, despite their value going down for now. We move on then to consumer discretionary. This is now worth 16%, which is down 4% compared to the last video. Healthcare, an area that I'm trying to grow within my portfolio, is up 2% to 13% overall of my portfolio. Next then we move across and we have technology, which remains level at 6%, so no changes here for now. Basic materials is a new addition, so I have invested in Rio Tinto, and that now accounts for 5% of my portfolio. Finally then we have telecommunications, which still remains level at 1% of my portfolio. If we add it all together into a single pie chart to make it a little bit easier to visualize and interpret, here we go. So at least everything now is capped at 20% maximum in terms of share of my portfolio. Let's move on then and have a look at the new purchases that I've made since the beginning of the year. So firstly, £200 added to my Artemis High Income Fund. Likewise, £200 added to my Fundsmith Equity Fund. £450 added to my Legal & General US Index Fund. £200 added to my Lindsell Train Global Equity. £200 again added to my Royal London Sterling Bond Fund, and a new fund added £200 into my Legal and General High Income, which is also a monthly dividend payer like the Artemis High Income. So in total, across all of my funds, I've added £1,450 of new purchases since the beginning of the year. If we look then at individual stocks, I purchased another 46 in Shell, which cost me just over £1,000. In addition to that, I added Rio Tinto for the first time, 23 shares, which cost me close to £1,000 as well. And finally then, I also bumped up my holdings in GSK, another 28 shares, which cost me just over £500. So in total, my stocks accounted for another £2,516 of purchases. And if you add that onto my funds, then total purchases year to date equates to £3,966. So quite a significant number of new additions year to date so far. If we move on then to Star Performer, so this is really when I usually look each month at which stock in my portfolio has performed the best. Well, that was all going great until last week, and then every single holding in my portfolio went the wrong direction. So I've given a graph here, as you can see, this is the initial batch of my stocks that I hold, and you can see all performing quite well until you look at the very, very right hand side of the graph, which is the last week just passed, and you can see every single holding heads in the wrong direction. Again, if we look at the remaining stocks within my portfolio, on this graph, same story. You can see at the very end, every single stock begins to head in a negative direction. Hopefully a good time though to add new purchases to my portfolio. If we look then at the individual stocks within my portfolio in terms of a breakdown of what they cost and their current value, there's only two now in positive territory, Kainos and British American Tobacco, and unfortunately everything else has gone into negative territory. As we know, there's a correction in the market. Hopefully it's a good time to add more purchases. Here's the final batch of stocks. So Royal Dutch Shell is right at the bottom now with BP, as the oil price globally has basically crashed, certainly significantly into the wrong direction. If we look at my different funds then, not as negatively affected, thankfully. All in red, however, not as much in terms of percentage change so far. So again, I will be adding more and more additions here to plan for the longer term. Certainly not a time to panic for now. Next then, if we move on and look at my dividend payments, firstly for January. So I've broken this down into individual stocks, which at the time was just GSK with a small payment of just £1.52. And two of my funds also paid out in January, the Artemis and Lindsell Train. So total dividend payments in January was £12.61. If we move on then to February though, things started to increase even further, which is obviously great to see. So firstly, I had a dividend payment from British American Tobacco at £18.27. Vodafone also paid out at £2.92. And then with my funds, of course, Artemis being a monthly payer, then £6.39, and Royal London was just over £20. So total dividend payments for February was £48.23. I split this then in terms of direct dividends. These are the ones that I'm getting from my individual stocks, which over the course of last year was certainly higher. As you can see here, very low in January and a big jump in February, and of course expecting even more in March. In terms of my funds then, a good start, and with the monthly pairs that I have now, this will continue to grow nicely, and the base level, as you can see here by the orange arrow, will begin to grow over time, and everything else will be built on top of that as a base level. On the next graph then, what I've done is compared each month of dividend payments versus 2019. As you can see here, 2020 has certainly started off in a far stronger position, thankfully. I'm expecting a very good month in March as well. So things are certainly heading in the right direction, and I should definitely exceed the latter months of the year as well this year versus 2019. What I've done here as well is put in a monthly target. So every single month I want to be achieving at least £100. In 2019, I managed to achieve that target on 5 separate occasions, and hopefully this year I will exceed that as well. As I say, the plan is to be achieving that every single month of the year. So still work to do in 2021 for January and February at least. Well, that's it for now, everyone. That's the latest update on my portfolio. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you would certainly hit the like button, leave a comment, that would be great. Always look forward to your feedback. If you'd also check out my Instagram page, that would also be greatly appreciated. I'll also leave a few videos here that you can check out. Hopefully you'll find them of interest as well. So thank you very much, and roll on March. Hopefully plenty of great deals to be had on the stock market once it heads back into recovery mode. Okay, thank you.